Ready? Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Calexico Unified School District's Board of Trustees special board meeting. Today is Wednesday, October 6th. It is now 5 p.m. Item A, opening items. A1, call to order. Janet?
Trustees present this evening are Trustee Romero, Trustee Lorenzo Calderon Jr., Trustee Ciro Calderon, with Trustee Alvarado and Trustee Magallanes absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Janet. A2, Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand up? Put your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. That was item A2. Item B, comments from the public. The board will take any and all comments from the public related to the sole item of this agenda. Janet, do we have any comments?
No comments.
Thank you, Janet. That was item B. Item C, action items. Consideration and action approval of the following items. Item C1, adoption of revisions to local control and accountability plan pursuant to Education Code Section 52062C. Ms. Ramirez?
Yes. Good evening, Board. The reason why we brought this item back to you is in our last board meeting on September 9, we did some revisions to the LCAP as recommended by our county, and that was submitted. So they did review our LCAP, and on September 15, they asked us to include further clarification, especially in one of our sections that is called Increased and Improved Services section. So if you look at the packet that I put on your desk, there's a little tab, yellow tab, that takes you to page 51. So wherever I have the sticky, just open it there. So in this section, we used to have about 2 pages worth of information. And in this section, what we have to do is we have to look at the needs, conditions, and circumstances for our foster youth, English learners, and socioeconomic disadvantaged students. And then after that, we have to determine what are the actions that we're going to be using, what is the design, and then finally we have to explain what is the expected outcome. How is this action going to service our students and how we're going to measure it? So what we did when we did the LCAP in the last time we brought it to you, we put several of our actions together that were very similar, and we did the same steps. So what was asked from the county is that we meet with them so they could provide technical support and guide us onto how to break down even further the actions and be able to provide all of these 3 steps, which is what is the need, what is the action, and how can we measure the outcome. So what we ended up doing, if you go to that page, we went ahead and separated all of our goals. And we did an activity where we separated all of our actions for goal 1, and we put them together based on what the need was. So I'm going to go over just one example because we did this for all 15 actions. Goal 1 has 15 actions. So instead of having all 15 actions together or half of them, we broke them down into smaller chunks. So for example, in goal 1, which is right on top of page 1 or page 51 in the middle, we start by talking about the need, and then we start describing what our data has. So where it says goal 1, right below it says Calexico Unified School District system is designed to raise the academic achievement of all students. And then upon thorough examination of the 2019 dashboard data, it was evident that our unduplicated pupil population, which is almost 92% of our students, scores in ELA, for example, are not at the same level of our all population. So then we broke down the data, and we know that our students are 46.3 below standard with all the students grouped together. So we looked at the gaps of these groups, the foster youth, English learners, and socioeconomic disadvantaged students. So we realized that our English learners, for example, scored 64.9 below standard. So the gap, the difference between how our English learners perform compared to how our all population does, it's an 18.6 point gap. Then we looked at our socioeconomic disadvantaged students, which is 54.2 points, and there is a gap of 7.9. compared to the all population. And then we did the same for our foster youth. All this information we already had in the original information for each goal, but we just needed to explain how the actions that our stakeholders recommended were going to impact this piece of data. So then what we talked about, if you go to the next page, on page 52, the large paragraph, the second paragraph that starts with, in order to address these unique needs, we started addressing some of the actions that were going to support this need. So we talked about emphasis on analyzing how our low-income students, our foster youth, or English learners are faring on benchmark assessments and on differentiated instruction, and how do we accelerate the learning for this group of students. So our action 1.1 is going to support this activity. This is where we fund our coordinators of academics, and they're the ones that do the professional development and help disaggregate data with our administrators and our teachers. Then we also talked about the need to have supplemental instructional materials to support core instruction. That one falls under action 1.2. Then we further start talking about the materials. The instructional materials that we purchase for our students, we have a special committee because we want to make sure that the instructional materials that we pick will address the needs of our unduplicated pupils. And one of the things that we realize is that not all state-approved textbooks that are on that list, not all of them address the needs of English learners, for example. So this committee oversees the different textbooks that are available, and they really want to target the needs of our English learners. And we did find out that there are some textbooks that do not address it, and they were taken off that list. So that's the job of this committee, because we know that our English learners are the ones that have a big gap compared to our all population. And then finally, action 1.7 talks about providing teachers time to do curriculum planning, to improve on core instruction, our tier 1 instruction, so that we're able to support our students. So then all these three actions, 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.7, is going to help us achieve the need for this particular need in terms of data. And then we say what our expectation will be. So for example, our expectation is that that gap that you see between the English learners and the all population, that gap that we saw on the previous page, so our gap was, for English learners, it was 18.6 point gap. So what we're proposing is that through these services, we're going to reduce that gap by 1/4. So that next year, we're going to look at the data, we're going to see that gap, and hopefully, instead of it being 18.6, it'll be 1/4 less, okay? Because it's really hard to bring down the gap to 0. I mean, it's just difficult because of the needs of our community. So we did this process for all the actions and every single goal. So we spent our last 3 days with support from the county on breaking down every single one of the actions and every single goal. So that's basically what was done. We did not change the actions. We did not change the amount that was spent on the different actions. All we did was clarify the need for these actions and how we expect to improve the different outcomes in our different goals. So it's more than anything was clarifying some language. And so we're bringing this to the board so that we can now hopefully approve it and then resubmit back to the county so that they have a better clarification of what was the increased or improved services for our foster youth.
So we did not change our end results.
Nothing changed other than the wording to justify how are these actions going to support our unduplicated pupils, which is our English learners, socioeconomic disadvantage, and foster youth.
Okay, so just clarify, explain a little bit more in detail as to what is it that we're going to do.
Correct. Okay. So just to remind you that the LCAP is comprised of stakeholder input from our parents, our students, our teachers, and so we didn't change any of that. All we changed was the justification so that there's more clarity and people understand why we picked the actions that we picked.
Okay, and this is fully doable by all of our staff, right?
Correct.
This is not this is not something that we're gonna need a specialized training, more training for teachers and staff, right?
No, it's the same kind of work that we were doing. All we did was clarify the why.
Okay,
Why did we pick this? The data was already there. We didn't change the data in our top. It's so you have the data and you have the actions. Explain to them how they work together and what do you expect to get out of it. So that's kind of what we did. Just more clarity as to why we have them.
perfect. Mr. Romero, do you have any questions?
No, I think it's an excellent presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Calderon Jr., do you have any questions? Thank you. Thank you, Lisa, for clarifying this for us. And again, so nothing was changed except that you just clarified
Correct.
some the wording, some of the explanations. So,
Correct.
Perfect. All right. So, is there a motion to approve C1?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Romero, second by Mr. Calderon Jr. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0. And item D, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Calderon Jr., second by Mr. Romero. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes 3-0. Thank you, everybody. It is now 5:11, and this concludes our special board meeting for the Calexico Unified School District. Thank you.